Welcome to this presentation of Guidelines for Protecting Your Trades. This is the Specialist Trading Weekly Stock, E-mini, and Forex lesson. Hello everyone and welcome once again. My name is Steve Primo. I am the President and Founder of Specialist Trading. And in this week's webinar, I want to share with you some guidelines that you can use for your trading. Now, a lot of people have been sending me emails as of late saying, Steve, how can I protect my trades in these volatile markets? Well, I'm going to share with you some guidelines that pertain not only to stocks, but to E-mini as well as the Forex markets. But before we begin, as always, I ask that you please take a moment to view our disclaimer. I'm going to show you some performance results using these guidelines, but please remember that we can in no way guarantee that any of these results will be repeated in the future. So please take a moment to view our disclaimer, and then we shall begin this week's stock, E-mini, and Forex lesson. All right, as I stated, the last couple of weeks have shown some increased volatility in the markets. If you recall this last week or so, we went straight up in the market, making nearly new highs and then straight down the next day, followed by a disastrous day the next day. A lot of people were really wondering why the market fell out of bed, and then the market the very next day went right back up. So a lot of people are concerned as to how to protect their trades, especially if they're in a trade that's producing some type of nice profits. Well, I'm going to show you some guidelines for each specific market, stocks, E-mini, and Forex markets, but these are mainly geared for trades you have using specialist trading strategies. In other words, if you're incorporating some type of other strategy within your trading, these might not be the proper guidelines. But for all of the strategies with specialist trading, these ones fit very nicely. And we're mainly going to be just covering daily signals, okay? These are not things that you can also apply to intraday trading or monthly bars. We're just looking at daily bars for right now in order to apply these guidelines. Now, let's start out with stocks, okay? Once again, we're looking at daily time frames. If you happen to get a signal and you take a trade that's generated off of a daily bar, here's the guideline. If you have a profit of 3/4 of a point or more, all right, doesn't matter if you're long or short, but if you have at least a 3/4 point gain, you have the option, remember it's not required, but the option to either exit a portion of your position or move your stop to unchanged. So this is a great guideline, regardless of the stock, regardless of the direction, but using one of our strategies. If you have a 3/4 of a point gain or more, at the very least you want to move your stop to unchanged, but you also have the option to exit a portion of the position. Let's look at an actual signal that was generated a couple of weeks ago. This was in BEAM, B-E-A-M, and this was on the 14th of February, Valentine's Day. We had a signal, I believe this is a strategy number 4 signal, but be that as it may, this is just a signal to go long, and our entry and exit guidelines using our rules for this particular strategy would have us entering on the very next day at 61.89 and then placing a limit to exit the trade at 63.07. Okay, so we know our entry, we know our exit. Now, ultimately, we did get in the trade, but let's see what happened. We never went up to the exit point, and then the stock turned around and kind of with the volatility in the market and the large moves, all of a sudden fell out of bed, and ultimately, had you not done anything different and left your stop at the initial placement, you would have been stopped out with a loss. But using these guidelines to protect yourself, which are an option, once again, they're not required, but are an option. What you want to do is say once you have a profit of 3/4 of a point or more, which would be ultimately right here, as you see, we would have just gotten up to that point, and you could have had the option to either exit a portion of your position or move your stop to unchanged. So this is, we know that we already have the 50% option, which is sometimes referred to as the 50% rule, which is an entirely different guideline. But a lot of people sometimes want things more cut and dry. They want to see an actual number of how much I'm actually profiting per se in the actual stock rather than looking at it on a percentage basis. So these guidelines just have to do with how much profit you actually have in the trade. So whatever daily signal you're taking, whether it's long or short, if you have a gain of 75 cents, 3/4 of a point or more, you have the option to either exit a portion of the position or move your stop to unchanged. And either one of those options would have helped you in this particular trade. All right, let's look and see how we can use these guidelines for the E-mini S&P because there's a lot more volatility and a lot more leverage trading the futures. We can't just say, well, 3/4 of a point works for everything. So how would we use a guideline for the E-mini futures? Well, if you have a profit of 8 points or more, remember we're looking at daily bar signals. These are not intraday trades. We're looking at daily bars. If you have a profit of 8 points or more, then you have the option either to exit a portion of your position or move your stop to unchanged. Okay, so the guidelines for E-mini is 8 points. Now here's a perfect example of a trade we had on the 21st of February. This was strategy 7, I believe, to go long. Here are rules for entry and for exit. You would have entered at 14.98 on the next day, and you would have exited anywhere from 15.29 or above. All right, so you already know your parameters there for entry and exit, but look what happened to the trade. You would have entered the next day, and you never reached your exit point, and that's where the volatility came into the market. This is where we fell out of bed. This is where we had this really sharp downturn on the day, that one particular trading day. So a lot of people, had they just kept their stop, their initial stop placement, they would have had a loss in the trade. Now, one way to protect yourself is to use these guidelines once again. So if you're using the 8-point guideline, you would have basically said once we get to this point, which is on your day of entry, you would have either moved your stop to unchanged at 15.0575, or you would have exited a portion of your position. If you're lucky enough to have more than one contract, say you had 2, you would have exited one at the 8-point level and then simply moved your stop to unchanged on the balance of your portfolio. Lots of ways, different ways to protect yourself, okay? So we never reached our exit point, but using these guidelines, you could have had a profit. At the very least, you would have broken even. Now let's go to the Forex markets, okay? How can we apply guidelines to the Forex markets? Now obviously we can't use the same guidelines for stocks or futures because the Forex markets are an entirely different type of animal. Well, here are the guidelines. If you have a profit of 50 pips or more, okay? Remember, we're only looking at daily bar charts here. We're not thinking about intraday charts or holding positions based off of monthly charts. But if you have a signal generated off of a daily bar and you have a profit of 50 pips or more, you have the option to either exit a portion of your position once again, or at the very least move your stop to unchanged. Now here's an example in the euro dollar where it's different from the past 2 previous examples where they would have helped you and you would have been able to exit possibly a portion of your position and then exited the remaining portion unchanged. Well, in this trade, actually, we have a trade here. I believe this is strategy number 5 to go long the euro dollar on the 11th. And here are our parameters. A very small trade, entering at 34.27, exiting at 34.97. So basically, we're only looking for 70 pips. All right. But once you got to the 50 pip level, you could have exited a portion of your position, or you could have moved your stop to unchanged, or both. And as we see here, this would have helped, but it really wouldn't have mattered because ultimately you would have been able to exit at the desired level. So even had you moved your stop to unchanged, you still would have exited this trade with a profit. So many times I just don't want people to feel because we get to these guidelines, that means I'm going to ultimately have a trade that fails here and I'll just get out unchanged. Even though you move your stop to unchanged, it does not mean that you will not have a winner. In this case, you could have moved your stop to unchanged and you still would have exited with a nice gain of 70 pips. Now, had you exited a portion of your position or even all at 50 pips, you know, you still have a profit of 50 pips, which is not bad. If you're trading one of the large contracts, that's roughly about $500. So it depends on, you know, your trading style. It depends on if you want to trade aggressively or conservatively. But remember, as we always state, what we teach and what we trade at Specialist Trading are strategies. They're not systems. Systems are 100% mechanical. They're 100% rule-based, meaning you must do the same exact thing every time you get a signal, every time a signal is generated. Does not matter if the market is choppy, does not matter if it's volatile, does not matter if it's just flatlining. You have to do the same thing every time. What we do at Specialist Trading is we trade strategies. Now, strategies are 75% rule-based, and they leave 25% open for discretion. Now, where students usually get confused is they think, well, discretion just means I can kind of hope and wish that this is going to go up just based off my feelings. That's not what we mean by discretion. Discretion is really taking in your intuitive account and seeing things that are happening in the market or deciding to trade aggressively or conservatively because of your experience or because of what you're noticing after trading for some time. Now, a lot of traders will say, well, Steve, I don't have that experience. I don't have that intuitive sense because I haven't been trading long enough. Well, this is what I teach you at Specialist Trading. For my 36 years of trading, everything I've seen, you will be able to benefit from in roughly 3 to 6 months. So this is one of the guidelines that we teach, which is the 25% you can use. If, let's say, you get into a trade and you just don't feel comfortable, it kind of reminds you of something before where you had a loser, and you're not comfortable with the trade, but you're already in, you can use this guideline. This is the discretion we talk about. This is the 25% discretion where you can say, you know what, I'm not going to exit at the standard exit of 34.97. I think I'll exit at the guideline of 50 pips. which would have given me still a nice 50 pip gain and would have gotten me out roughly towards the exit point. So this is what we're talking about when we say discretion. We're not talking about, well, I woke up feeling lucky today, so I'm going to go long the euro dollar. That's not what we mean. We mean that once you're in the trade, if you start to get a little worried or if you start to feel more confident about the trade, you can use these discretionary tactics, which are just sound techniques that I've accumulated over 36 years. You can use these tactics to place your stop, to move your exit up higher or lower, to perhaps buy more contracts. These are the things we teach at Specialist Trading, and these guidelines are part of that 25% discretion. All right, so let's review what we talked about. If you're going to be using these guidelines to protect your trades in these volatile times, remember, these apply only for daily transactions. So if you're looking at a 5-minute chart on the E-mini, or if you're looking at an hourly chart on stocks or on the Forex, you cannot use these guidelines because obviously you're going to have different parameters. If you're taking your signals off of daily bars and you're buying or selling stocks, you can use the guidelines of 3/4 of a point or 75 cents. That's where you have the option to exit a portion of your position or move your stop to unchanged. If you're taking daily signals for the E-mini futures, such as strategy number 5 or strategy number 7, once you have a profit of 8 points or more, you have the option to exit a portion of your position or move your stop to unchanged. It's up to you. It's up to your discretion. And then lastly, in the Forex markets, if you're trading a daily signal and you have a gain of 50 pips or more, you can exit a portion of that position or move your stop to unchanged. Okay? It's all up to you. These are the things we give you so that you can come up with your own sound trading plan. All right, in conclusion to this weekly stock, E-mini, and Forex lesson, remember we talked about these guidelines for protecting your trades, but the first thing you have to know in order to protect yourself is a strategy in which to trade. So this is why we always suggest for all of our members to learn your strategies like the back of the book, like the back of your hand, like just as if you understood it from opening to close. You know exactly where to enter, you know exactly where to place your stop, you know exactly where to exit the trade. Now remember, we always advise you though to paper trade first. This is how you're really going to learn and understand the strategy. So even though you fully understand it just by watching these videos that we give you, we want you to paper trade for a while so that you can see how it works in real time. Our edge here is consistency. We're not promising anyone that they're going to make 500, 600, 700% in 1 year, but we're trying our best to instill this sense of consistency in your trading so that you'll be trading 20, 30, 40 years down the road. In conclusion, I ask that you take one last look at our disclaimer. I showed you some performance results using these guidelines, but please remember that we can in no way guarantee that any of these results will be repeated in the future. Thank you so much for attending today. Thank you so much for participating in Specialist Trading and any of our strategies and becoming a member. And we look forward to seeing you next week with a weekly stock, E-mini, and Forex lesson. Bye-bye.